Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel, and today I'm going to be talking about 23 books that I want to read in 2023. So I am very excited for today's video. What I want to talk about today are books that have been on my TBR for a while that I really want to prioritize next year, particularly because they are 5-star predictions. I did do a video where I talked about my most anticipated releases for 2023. Those are obviously all 5-star predictions as well, but these are books that I've had my eye on, that I need to read, that I need to get to, and that I think I'm really going to enjoy. So I'm going to talk you through the 23 books that I want to prioritize next year and that I will hopefully give 5 stars to. I also think it would be really fun for me to next year at the end of the year go through these 23 books and see how they panned out. So a little peek at my December 2023 content. All right, so we have 23 books to get through. So let's get started. The very first book on my list is going to be The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This book has been on so many TBRs of mine. I've talked about this book quite a bit and I still have not read it. It's just one of those books that I know I'm going to love. I know I'm going to give this book 5 stars. I have no idea why I haven't picked it up yet, but I need to. In 2023, I absolutely have to do it. If you do not know, this book is a Greek mythology retelling of Achilles and Patroclus' story, and I've heard that it is heartbreaking and beautiful, and I'm so excited to read this book next year. The next book is going to be Twisted Lies by Anna Huang. This is the final book in the Twisted series, a series that I have very much enjoyed. I will say I have not read the first book, Twisted Love, just because I have heard not so great things about it, but I really loved Twisted Games. I really loved Twisted Hate, and I've heard that this is actually the best in the series. The Twisted series is a contemporary romance series, and each book follows a different girl, a part of this group of best friends. This follows Stella and her love interest, Christian. So I'm very excited for this. It's also the longest, and I've heard that it wraps up the entire series very nicely, so I'm very excited to read this. I definitely think it will be a 5-star. The next book is Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. This is an enemies to lovers YA fantasy. I don't know if it's quite a YA fantasy romance. I think I have heard that it is, but I know that we have a thief and a member of the royal family kind of begrudgingly teaming up and then falling for each other. It sounds amazing, and Mary E. Pearson wrote the Remnant Chronicles. I have only read the first book in that series, but I truly think that I will love this because I really liked her writing style. I feel like this is her more popular series. I believe that this is a duology, and I just hear more people talk about it and really love it. So I am really hopeful that this will be a new favorite. Following the YA fantasy theme, I also want to read Chain of Gold next year by Cassandra Clare. As you guys know, I've said this a few times, I do plan to read basically the entirety of the Shadowhunter Chronicles next year. I've already read the first 3 books in the Mortal Instrument series, but I have quite a few more books to get through. This is the first book in the Last Hour series, and I just feel like this is one of those books that people absolutely love. I feel like this one and Clockwork Princess are like the most popular books, the books that I hear the most talk about. So even though I do think I will probably give a few of the Shadowhunter books 5 stars, I decided to pick this one because I've heard it's incredible. My best friend Lachlan absolutely loves it. She says it's beautiful. I'm very excited to read this. The next book on my list is The Silvered Serpents by Roshani Chachki. This is the second book in the Gilded Wolves trilogy. I read the first book, The Gilded Wolves, I think in 2021. I had wanted to finish the trilogy out in 2022, but it just didn't happen. So I definitely want to prioritize books 2 and 3 next year. I really liked The Gilded Wolves. It does have some like mixed reviews. It's very much like a ragtag team of misfits team up, and there is a big focus on found family and a lot of different POVs, a really interesting setting. I really loved the first book. It's a YA fantasy, and the way that it ended was very intriguing. From what I have heard from people who do like The Gilded Wolves, which is a book that I gave 4 stars, they have said that the second book is even better. So I do think I have a good chance of giving this book 5 stars, and I definitely want to prioritize this, particularly in the winter. As you can see, the cover is very wintry, and I believe they go to Russia in this book, so I'm very excited for this one. The next book on my list is a little bit different for me, but I've just heard so many glowing reviews of this book, and I know that it is getting adapted into a TV show, so I do want to pick it up, and that is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I'm not sure if this is like a thriller or if it's just kind of like dark academia literary fiction, but I do know that this book follows a group of Shakespearean actors at a conservatory, and I believe one of them ends up dead. I think that this is kind of told from the perspective of the detective who is researching this case, and I also think it's kind of like looking back in time at it. I've just heard incredible things. So many people love this book. I see a lot of people say this is like their favorite book of all time, and when I hear that, my ears always perk up, so I'm going to prioritize this next year, and hopefully I will love it. The next book is is going to be Black Sunshine by Karina Halley. This is an adult paranormal romance between a human girl who is actually a vampire and then a vampire who ends up kidnapping her. I've just heard really good things about this author, and she has a few of these paranormal romances within this series. I know she also has like a Dracula retelling that I'm very curious to get to, so I definitely want to get to this. This was also a book that I really wanted to read in the month of October this past year, but I just didn't get to it, so I'm hopefully going to get to this in 2023 and will hopefully give it 5 stars. All right, the next 2 books I'm going to do together, and that is volumes 3 and 4 of the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. I read volumes 1 and 2 earlier this year, and they completely blew me away. I was so in love with the characters and the story and the writing and the art, and the series is just so cute. It is a queer romance and it's friends to lovers, and it's just a really beautiful story. I just know I'm going to love volumes 3 and 4 because I gave the first 2 graphic novels in the series 5 stars, and I have no doubt that I will love the rest of the series. I do believe that there's going to be one more volume that is also coming out maybe next year or maybe in 2024, which I'm very excited for. So I definitely want to finish up the books that are out, and I'm sure I'm going to love these. The next book on my list is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have enjoyed a few of this author's books, particularly Daisy Jones and the Six. I think that's her best book. I absolutely love it. I am so excited for the show, by the way. And the premise of this romance sounds very interesting. Our main character, she ends up marrying her high school sweetheart. They are very much in love and happy. And then one day her husband goes missing and is presumed dead, I believe in like a hiking incident or something like that. And then several years pass by and she ends up falling in love again, getting engaged, starting fresh, starting a new life. And then while she's engaged to her new love of her life, her husband, who was presumed dead, ends up calling her and says, "I've been missing this whole time, but I'm coming back to you." So now she has to make like the toughest decision ever between these 2 loves of her life. It sounds like it's going to be a very complicated and emotional story. I've heard really good things. I really like this author's writing style, so I am sure I'm going to love this. The next book on my list is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. So this is obviously such a popular and well-loved book here on BookTube, and I know that the second book is coming out in 2023. I believe it's called Hellbent, so I really need to get to this. But this is, I believe it's kind of like an adult fantasy, a little bit of dark academia, secret societies, murder. It sounds like a really interesting book and an interesting premise. I absolutely love the Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo, so I am excited to see how I like an adult novel written by her, but just because I love the Six of Crows so much, it is like one of my favorite YA fantasy series of all time. I have a feeling I'm going to like this as well. The next book on my list is The Kingmaker by Kennedy Ryan. So this is a book that I've heard a lot of buzz about when it comes to Kennedy Ryan. I feel like I hear the most about this and Real. I recently read Real and I gave it 5 stars. It was incredible. It blew me away. One of the best romances that I have ever read. And so truly I have very high hopes for all of Kennedy Ryan's books. So I just decided to pick this one. I'm reading this in January and I'm very excited about it. I think it's kind of like a forbidden love, maybe billionaire romance. I could be wrong, but that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. It also has kind of a city setting, which I always enjoy. So I'm very much looking forward to this book and think I'm going to love it. The next book on my list is The Heart of Betrayal, also by Mary E. Pearson. So this is actually the second book in the Remnant Chronicles, which is a YA fantasy romance series. I read the first book, The Kiss of Deception, earlier this year, and it truly blew me away. That book does not have good ratings on Goodreads from a lot of people, but I loved it. Like, I had such a good time reading it. I really liked the characters, I liked the story, I liked the writing style. I am so happy that I decided to give that book a chance, and I'm very much looking forward to continuing on with the trilogy. The reason that this is a 5-star prediction is because I loved the first book. I gave it 4 stars, and I've heard that this book is even better. So I just feel like this book has a very high chance of getting a 5-star rating from me. The next book on my list is a book that I definitely should have read by now, but I'm 100% going to be reading in 2023 because I actually have it on my January TBR, is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I will be buddy reading this with Sam in January, and I am so excited to finally pick this book up. The Pride and Prejudice movie starring Keira Knightley is probably my favorite movie of all time. I think it is perfection. The soundtrack is amazing, and I need to read the book. Like, it's about time. So I am praying that I give it 5 stars. This is a huge 5-star prediction for me. I will be so sad if I don't end up loving it, but I do think that I will, and I'm excited to get into Jane Austen's work. Another Jane Austen book that I decided to add to this list because I do think I have a good chance of absolutely loving it is Emma. I believe that this is kind of a more comedic Jane Austen novel, her most comedic novel, but I know that it does center a lot on romance as well. I've heard wonderful things. I actually have not watched the adaptation for this, so I want to read this first and then do that, but I've heard it's really great, and this is just one of those Jane Austen books that I feel like you have to read if you're interested in Jane Austen, and I've just heard so many wonderful things, so I hope I love it. Following the classics theme, I really want to read Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy in 2023. This book has just always like stuck out to me as a book that I am so interested in. It is a classic. It is a book that is often listed on like greatest novels of all time and, you know, I don't know who's deciding that, but this book just has so much praise that I am very curious to read it. I know that it centers around romance and I believe family drama and things like that. On the back, there is a claim that it is the greatest love story in world literature. I don't know about that because A Court of Mist and Fury exists, but I'm willing to give this a shot. I'm excited. I also haven't seen the adaptation for this, but I'm very curious too because it does star period piece queen Keira Knightley. So yeah, this is a big one. I'm intimidated, but I don't know why this book has always just been in the back of my mind of something that I've wanted to read for years and years. In 2023, it's gonna be the year. I'm gonna do it. So hopefully this is a 5-star. Another 5-star prediction for next year is going to be A Broken Blade by Melissa Blair. So this is, I believe, an adult fantasy, and it's actually a Robin Hood retelling, which is a story that I really enjoy. And I know that we have like fae and elves and a lot of magical creatures in this book. I also know that there is an enemies to lovers romance. I don't think there is any spice in this book though, which is fine, but I've just heard a lot of praise for this book on TikTok and on Instagram, so I am hopeful that I will love it too. Another book that I definitely want to read next year is Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is actually the first book in the Chestnut Springs series, and the second book is Heartless, which I read maybe like a month or two ago, and I loved it, absolutely obsessed. This is the first book, so I want to go back and read the first one. It is a companion series, so you don't have to read them in order, so you can do like I did and read the series backwards, but I loved Heartless so much that I just had to go back and read the first book. I believe in this one, it's kind of an enemies to lovers situation where our male main character is like a bull rider, and I think he's kind of like a bad boy, and then our female main character is kind of this city girl who comes into town to try to kind of tame him, I think, and then romance blossoms. So I'm so excited. Elsie Silver is such an amazing romance author. She writes tension so well, she writes spice so well, so I have no doubt that I'm going to love this. I just hope that I love it as much as Heartless. Another book that I want to read next year, and I will hopefully give 5 stars to, is The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. I did technically start this book in, I want to say June, I think it was. I went on a vacation to Montana and I brought this book with me, and I read like the first 100 pages, but just got busy on vacation and I didn't pick it up again. What I had read of it so far, I did really enjoy, and so I do think that I do have a pretty good chance of giving this book 5 stars. This is a romance based in Alaska, and our female main character, she's from Toronto. She goes to visit her estranged father, and on the way, she ends up meeting this very grumpy local pilot, and the two of them are opposites, but they end up falling for each other. I've heard amazing praise for this book. I also really love the like Alaskan setting for this book. I've realized that that is like a setting that I really enjoy, like Alaska or Montana or Canada or even like Washington, that very like naturey, hiking, outdoors style of romance. So if you have any recommendations for other romances that feature that setting, let me know, because when I was reading this, and especially reading it in Montana, even though it's based in Alaska, but it was just a really cool experience, and I really like that setting, and yeah, just something that I really enjoy. So I'm very excited to read this. I've just heard nothing but praise. I've had a few of you tell me that you think that I would like it, so I think this will be a 5-star. All right, and then the last 3 books are books that I do not own, and the first one is going to be A Deal with the Devil by Elizabeth O'Rourke. So the reason that I put this on this list is because I've just heard such amazing things about this book. I see this whole like series, these covers everywhere, and I feel like every time Elizabeth O'Rourke comes out with a new novel, it is always widely praised. So this is the first book in the Devil series, and it's an enemies to lovers contemporary romance. I think that our main character ends up working for this kind of like playboy type, but she discovers that he is pretty damaged, and I think she kind of helps heal them. They fall in love. It sounds like a good time. I'm excited for it. The next book is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is like a super popular, well-known, very acclaimed adult fantasy novel. It follows our main character through their life as they grow up to be one of the most notorious wizards in the world. And it sounds just like amazing, incredible. Like that's all I need to hear. And I'm just really excited to get into more epic and adult fantasies this year. And I definitely think that this is one that I'm going to love. All right, and the very last book on my 23 books I want to read in 2023 is Angel's Blood by Nalini Singh. So my friend Nadia, she recently read this and she loved it, and so I really want to pick it up because she and I have pretty similar taste. I believe this is like an adult urban fantasy romance. I know that there are a lot of angels in this world. I don't know if there are other creatures, but one of the main reasons that I want to read this, other than of course that Nadia loved it, is this is one of Sarah J Maas's favorite series, and I think it really inspired her, probably particularly with Crescent City because it's an urban fantasy, but I'm really excited. I know that the series is quite old. I think it was written in the early 2000s, but I'm still curious to see how how I enjoy it. I love the urban fantasy subgenre. I really want to read more urban fantasies, so I definitely want to pick this one up. I've heard a lot of praise for it, and I will hopefully be giving it 5 stars. All right, everyone, so that is it. Those are my 23 books that I want to read in 2023. Let me know, have you read any of these books? Did you like them? Do you think I'm going to like them? Are there any other 5-star predictions you have for me that should be put on my radar? As always, my Instagram and my Goodreads are linked down below. You are welcome to follow me on there at any time. I really appreciate that you watched this video. I hope that you are all having a fantastic day, and I will catch you guys in the next one.